For the people that don't have friends like that or don't have that confidence, what do you tell them?
Oh, just start. You'll figure it out as you go, but the best way is to just start. Just start and just make a mess. Clean it up as you go. Yeah, as soon as you hit the road and start traveling, it's like there's no shot lists, there's no deliverables. You're literally just doing it because you love it and nothing else. And I think that makes you want to do it more. You need to remove the success of the reel from how good it is. It's not necessarily a correct indicator of how good your content is. I think to create emotional buy-in from people is about relatability and about storytelling. I think that's where a long-term brand is made. It's not necessarily about capturing what you see. It's more about emulating what you feel.
Welcome to the next season of Beyond the Cut. Today is episode 1 with Elliott Sauvage, who is a filmmaker, content creator, and the visual lead for LSKD, a company that tells beautiful stories around the ideas of fitness, sports, and adventure. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and also special thanks to Uppbeat for sponsoring this whole season, but more on that later. Let's get into the episode. I feel like you had such a crazy run in the last ever since I guess I started seeing your content 6 months. June, July is when I kind of started seeing your content. How has that been for you?
It's been insane, actually. It's been a crazy year. I started out this year at something like 2,000 followers and didn't really put a lot of effort into my own personal socials. It was more just about kind of what I was creating for other brands. So I didn't really care about my own socials. And then I went to Japan in April, May, and kind of went in with a little bit of a plan. I had saved a few sounds. I went in with a little bit of a plan on some stuff that I wanted to create. And I was like, I'll give it a go, because I work with Dan, Dan Dickman.
Mm-hmm.
Dan and I work together full time, and he has just been absolutely crushing it with his social game. And I'm like, I want to it'd be good to just give it a go, give it a go and see what happens. Yeah, I just had that one. It was literally the first reel that I posted. We landed in Tokyo, and I spent a couple of days just shooting some stuff in Tokyo, and made one just super hypey edit with that one Kendrick Radiohead sound.
Yeah.
And it went off. It's still my most viewed reel this year. It went psycho. And then from there, it just kind of, the momentum just kept on going, because I just sort of kept on posting. Yeah, just from there, just started shooting more. And I planned a trip to NZ that was kind of specifically for getting content, and we shot heaps of cool stuff over there. And yeah, I guess it just kind of kept on going. So finished out the year. I set a goal when I started growing a bit more. I set a goal to be sick to get to 25,000 followers before the end of 2024, and I just ticked over yesterday. So that was cool.
Because you sent that video in to me. You're the news
Yeah.
label. And I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember what you wrote. And I instantly was like, oh, I have to watch this. You say, this video holds a special place in my heart. It was the first one I posted on my trip to Japan recently, and has completely changed the direction of my filmmaking career. It randomly went absolutely bonkers, and combining this with a bit of consistency, I shot my Instagram up in less than 4 weeks.
Yeah, that was it.
For the people that that want to get into it, what advice? Because I feel like all you needed was that little push. Your talent was there, and even Dan, I think even you mentioned him telling you to do the lens distortion thing. He just kind of pushed you a little bit. For the people that don't have friends like that or don't have that confidence, what do you tell them?
Oh, just start, for real. That would be it. It's the same, when you start a big project, it's always the hardest part is starting, because you're like, oh my God, where do I start with this? Where do I start with this edit? How do I do this? You literally just start, and just start making a mess. And the more you go on, the more you'll kind of tidy it up, and you'll start to figure out what you like and what you don't like, and what other people like and what they don't like. And, you'll figure it out as you go, but the best way is to just start and just make a mess, clean it up as you go.
Is starting harder or consistency?
Once you've started and you kind of know what you like to do. Like, the more you do, the more I feel like you get an understanding of what your style is and like what your kind of niche is. And, you'll even see like what people kind of like to see from you is kind of like a good indicator of, you found your niche. Like if you post stuff that's too far outside of your niche that doesn't get as much traction as your other stuff, then I feel like that's a good indicator that you sort of, you found your niche a little bit. I think definitely starting is a lot harder because once you know what you like and once you know what you're doing, I think it's just getting that consistency of, just continuing to create sort of, I guess, within your niche is, a lot easier than starting from scratch.
That was I guess one of the first ones where you like it looked like you traveled because I was going through some of your work and it's a lot more work related stuff.
Mm.
And that was the first one where I really felt like, okay, cool, I get to travel. Maybe don't really have guidelines from work too much. Did that give you more of like yeah, I could do this, like create like a little bit more creative freedom or like just testing things out?
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, you're right. It was like the first time I really put effort into my work. And because it was like, up until that point, it was almost like I don't really know what like my work is, because like the only time I ever really create stuff is for work. So it was like once I started doing that, it was like, I guess, yeah, I kind of like this, I kind of like doing this. So that really was like the first time I sort of did anything that was for me. And it was like, shit, this is fun. I like this, like you start filmmaking as a career, it can be very easy to forget why you started it, and you started it because you love it. And once you start doing it again for the love of it, then you're like, oh shit, no, this is why I started. I started because I love it.
You get the juices flowing again. Like you feel like
Yeah.
the first time you get a camera and you're like, what? Look at the way this looks, and you're like, oh, looking at different things. You're shooting. You probably had so much footage that you probably didn't even use, but you're like, I'm gonna record it anyways. Like that feeling
Yeah.
is a feeling a lot of people miss. It's because you've been working with Loose Kid for what, like 3, 4 years, maybe?
Yeah. So I started full time for LSKD in 2021, July 2021, but have been working with them since like 2018.
Because when you work for that long, especially for a company doing video stuff, it's so easy, I think, for a lot of people to just die within the company of like the creative stuff. Like you just can't you don't want to go home and like pick up a camera. And
Mm.
I think traveling is a big thing for like people who love that creative side in filmmaking because it actually makes you want to pick up your camera. Was that
Mm.
was that something that happened to you, or are you still like outside of work? Like I love this. I want to pick up my camera. I want to shoot this. I want to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because I don't think there was ever a point for me where I stopped loving it, like even when I was just creating for LSKD and not for me, I was still loving it because I'm pretty blessed that working within LSKD, we're all pretty encouraged to create cool shit. I think like a big thing for us is to want to push the boundaries a little bit and to want to kind of, you know, lead the way when it comes to like storytelling and things like that. So we are, we're pushed to want to create things that like we love creating as well, that other people are gonna love to watch. So I think like I was pretty blessed in that respect. Yeah, it was definitely like, you get home and it's kind of like the last thing you want to do is like keep shooting. Even though I do love it, like during the week, it's still kind of just like, I don't really feel like picking up a camera when I get home or like editing when I get home. But
Yeah.
yeah, as soon as you like hit the road and start traveling, it's like there's no shot lists, there's no deliverables. You're literally just doing it. Like no one's asking you to do it. You're literally just doing it because you love it and nothing else. And I think that makes you want to do it more because it's like, well, it's just for me. It's not for anyone else. It's just for me. So I don't know, just get in and just have some fun, try some new shit.
Yeah. And then that extra jolt when you posted it and people were eating it up and they were loving it is like, oh man, like it's because it's always nice, and you probably remember this when you started. You shoot so much stuff and no one really likes it, but you're like, man, I love it. And then that almost is like a marker for validation, which kind of sucks. Then you don't want to do it. Now with social media and
Mm,
how fast things take off, it's like you did it and you're like, oh, it actually does feel good. And that's also a trap for a lot of creators because there's so many amazing creators out there that don't get the love or the recognition that stop when it's like, no, but it's good. Can you speak more on that feeling after you posted it? And like, is it something you still chase now as a creator for yourself?
yeah, yeah, definitely. It is one thing that I do have to kind of remind myself of every now and again is like, you need to remove the success of the reel from from how good it is. You know, it's not necessarily a correct indicator of how good your content is. Yeah, that's one thing I'm still working on because, you know, if I post something now and it only gets a few hundred likes, I'm like, oh shit, you know, like it mustn't be that good. Like people mustn't like it. But I'm like, nah, that's not it. Like that's, you know, there's so many different factors that come into what goes off and what doesn't. And, you know, like I was talking about before, like I have a bit of a niche now when it comes to the content that I create. And it's a lot of really high energy stuff, like high energy, explosive sound design, things like that. And it's like, if I post something that isn't that, it generally won't do as well. But yeah, I need to remind myself that it's not an indicator of how good the content is.
You're talking about you know, LSKD and the brand, and you said being part of a brand that is so dedicated to the storytelling of mission, values, and its people is nothing short of incredible. So as I'm doing my research for you, I'm like, I don't know what LSKD is, so obviously I want to look it up and stuff. And I'm amazed by the stuff that you guys do because it actually feels like it's a lot more story based. I was like, well, what am I actually watching? And I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, sports, fitness, all that stuff. How good does it feel to be able to like work with a brand that does focus on the creative side and the human side of storytelling?
Oh, I think it's great. As brands are evolving and as social media is evolving, I think it's becoming more and more important to have something that people can connect to emotionally. There's a lot to be said for brands like, you know, Tracksmith and Nike and, you know, even like BPN supplements do a really good job of this, of creating emotional connection to their audience. Like they're telling stories. It's not just like, hey, we just released this new product, go and buy it. It's like the commitment to storytelling and the commitment to relatability, I think, is so important. You need to create that relatability to your brand, because if people see something that they don't relate to, it's like, oh, it's just an ad or it's just another brand selling XYZ products, you know, I don't care. Creating that relatability and telling those stories that people can emotionally connect to creates that buy-in from audiences and creates that buy-in from communities to realize it's like, okay, this brand is obviously more than just some big corporation, like a bunch of robots in suits. Like this brand is obviously made up of people, and these people obviously care about their people and about their community and their athletes and stories. So one thing that we have slowly learnt to do as a brand is to continue to tell stories, because I think that's what is more important. That's what's going to create long-term brand. Obviously, like commitment to product and commitment to, you know, development is like crucial. Like you're not going to have a brand without a good product. But I think to create emotional buy-in from people is about relatability and about storytelling. I think that's where long-term brand is made.
How did you become the visual lead? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of people would want to do as a career, and they're like, where do I start? Like, what do I do? Do I have to do everything? Am I getting coffee for people? Am I making as much content as possible? Am I learning about marketing and doing all this? How does one become the visual lead of a company that does storytelling so well?
I was pretty fortunate in that the company that I used to work for had a pretty close connection with LSKD. So we spent a bit of time just doing contract work for LSKD. You know, we like our first shoot for LSKD was for like jeans on just some random bridge in Brisbane, and we shot a bunch of stuff. And then from there, it just, you know, we did that one, and then we did another one, and then another one, and it started getting kind of like more and more consistent. The more we did it, the more we started to kind of develop a style. Like we started to develop our own style for the brand, and that kind of almost became the playbook. Like it's like, okay, we now play to this style because we've kind of honed this. So we worked away on that for, you know, a couple of years, and then eventually it got to a point where I was basically just creating LSKD content full time within the company that I was working for. So it just made sense to switch over. Yeah, eventually I came over in 2021, and it meant that we had the opportunity to like double down because I was actually there in the office with the team full time. And yeah, we just doubled down on creating content, and we honed our style more and more, and that changed as well over the years as like social media changed. We had to pivot and change what it was that we were creating, and then eventually it kind of became apparent because for a long time it was just product. Like we were just talking about product, and eventually it became apparent that's like we need to start storytelling our athletes and our people. They're the most important part of the brand is the people. So yeah, it just became apparent that we need to do that. And yeah, I just kept on doing it, and I kept on practicing, I guess.
How do you sell that idea to the higher ups? Was that an easy like this is what we got to pivot to, because this is what people are eating up? Because I could assume that it was a slow start. You know, you do one of those videos to test it out. Maybe it's a little different, so maybe not everyone's watching it or whatever or eating it up. And then, you get to that point. Was that what happened? Or was, the boss like, nah, I love this idea. Like, let's roll with
Mm,
it and let's keep going in that direction.
yeah, it's tricky. Like I know, again, I think it's a blessing working for a company like LSKD that's so dedicated to mission and values. So I can definitely see why other brands would have difficulty latching onto that concept because it's like, well, wait a minute, where's the product? Like there wasn't a big shop now button at the end of the video, so we can't run with that. But yeah, working for LSKD, having such a strong dedication to mission and values, it's like the way we kind of pitched it was like because the people that we work with, like the athletes that we work with, they're so well connected and they resonate so well with our mission and values. It's like we're almost not storytelling those people. We're almost storytelling our own mission and values through other people, right? Because you have people like, for example, Logan Martin, the Olympic BMXer. He just won world champs in Dubai, like for the third time, which is crazy. But you have someone like him who is so down to earth, so humble, so dedicated to literally being like 1% better every day. It's like, when you storytell someone like that, yes, you're storytelling him, but you're also storytelling your own mission and values through another person. So that was the easiest way for us to roll with those concepts is it's like, yeah, we're storytelling them, but we're also storytelling ourselves and our dedication to those mission and values. So yeah, is a different story working for someone like LSKD for sure.
In your latest video, your latest YouTube video, you talked about, choosing music makes the production faster. Can you explain why to people who like, or why that works for you? Because I know it doesn't work for everyone, but why does that work for you?
So I've always been a muso. You can see like you can see behind me up there's a couple of guitars, and in my other camera you can see up here as well. I think like music has always been a big one for me. Like music has always been kind of like the make or break in the edit. And I think, I noticed pretty quickly that when I have a track picked out, ready to go before shoot day, it just seems to come together a lot faster. even if, like, say, for example, that one that I did with Whoop and Brie Masters, I was like, okay, well, I know I want it to be, it has to be a 30-second slot, right? And I'm like, okay, I know I want it to sort of, start off slow and then build, because I was like, I want this video to kind of emulate like an actual track session that Brie would do. She would get to the track, she would warm up, she would do her stretches, she would do a couple of laps, she would put her spikes on, and then she would get into the really fast stuff. So it's like, okay, well, I know I want to emulate that in the video. You give that feeling of kind of like it feels like a track session as you're watching it. So I, found something that sort of emulated that, like it started off pretty slow and then it came up a little bit as she's doing her stretches, and then it comes down as she's getting ready, and then goes up all the way up. So I'm like, I found a track that felt like that. I found a track that you can kind of put put your headphones on and close your eyes and you listen. You're like, yeah, this feels right. I had that in mind. I had it in the timeline ready to go before I even started shooting. And then as soon as I had my selects done, it kind of all came together a lot faster, because I was like, okay, well, I know that stuff that I shot of her tying her shoes up is going to go here in the track, because that's when, when I close my eyes and I listen to the track, that's where I saw it landing. So, I put that in there, and then, the stuff of her taking off from the blocks and sprinting is going to go just as the track spikes up. So that's going to go there, and everything else just kind of fell to place a lot faster just through music.
I just wanted to take the time to announce one of the winners for the Uppbeat competition I held back in December, and that is Maven Moreno. So if you guys want to see my reaction to his video, be sure to check out my TikTok and my Instagram. And if you guys are looking for high quality music without the hassle of copyright issues, Uppbeat is your one-stop shop. They offer thousands of high quality music, sound effects, AI playlist generators, and they are also rolling out motion graphics. I want to give them a special shout out because they are sponsoring the next season of Beyond the Cut, which includes this video you're watching right now. So if you are looking for high quality music at an affordable price, Uppbeat is the perfect solution for you. Head over to Uppbeat through the link in my description and start making those videos. All right, now back to the video. For that Japan trip, did you shoot everything first? Did you know that was a track?
Before I left for the trip, I had a bunch of sounds saved. And, like, for example, that Kendrick one, I had that saved for a while, because I was like, I can kind of see how the edit's going to look before I shoot it, because of the vibe of the music. And it's, it's the same with a lot of things. Like, you pick something from like the Interstellar soundtrack, and it's going to be a pretty slow edit with like a lot of static shots in there and a lot of like slow movement. And then you pick something like that Kendrick and Radiohead track that's like quick, fast cuts, really hypey. Like, you kind of know how it's going to be. So, when you go into shooting, that you're like, okay, well, I need to get some shots for that Kendrick one. So it's like, fast whips, fast pans, like really high energy, like feet walking through the city, things like that, like trains whizzing past. And then you're like, okay, I also know that I need to get some slower static shots for this other track that I have picked out. So you get some tripod shots, some like slow movements, things like that. So I wasn't as meticulously planned on that trip as I was with, something that's for a commercial client like the Whoop one. But you still go in with a bit of an idea of like, these are the things that I know that I have to get to make sure that it works for those tracks that I had picked out.
Wow. So for every shot, are you getting, or like, let's say you're just walking down in Japan and you're in an area, are you getting movement shots and then on sticks, like stationary shots of the same kind of scene just in case? Or are you really kind of just, okay, cool, this would look good stationary, though I'm just kind of moving along?
Not always. Like, I know, sometimes it just depends on the environment. Like, for example, going to like Shibuya Crossing and like seeing everyone, walking past, and seeing the traffic go past and the trains, you kind of stand there and you're like, I can kind of tell that a lot of what I shoot here is going to be handheld and just fast, like quick whips and pans and things like that. And then you go somewhere like, we went to Takayama and like Kyoto, and it's very serene and quiet. So you're like, I know that a lot of the stuff that I shoot here is going to be a little bit quieter and a little bit more static. You kind of get that vibe. Like a lot of what I try to do in these videos is emulate what I feel when I go there. Like when you go to Shibuya Crossing, you feel this like energy of like all these people and all the traffic and the trains and everything like that. You feel the energy of that. And then you go somewhere like, Takayama and Kyoto, and it's like you feel an entirely different energy there. It's a lot more, serene and quiet and peaceful. So it's not necessarily about capturing what you see. It's more about like emulating what you feel when you're there. And that's I think, how a lot of that trip turned out is a lot of it was just kind of emulating the feel of each of those locations when I was there.
That's beautiful, man. To emulate how you feel, like not sure what. Yeah. Okay, one last question before we like get into kind of the video breakdowns. How do you navigate telling different stories like with visuals in this sports fitness adventure niche? Because it's hard sometimes. You almost feel like you're shooting the same things, but when I watched a lot of the videos that you guys produce, uh, it feels different. It doesn't feel the same all the time. How do you navigate that?
It starts with, the person's story, because like that's where you find your point of difference. Like I was talking about before, a lot of what we storytell is our mission and values, and it's tricky to keep on storytelling that in a different way each time. So that's where you lean into each person. You lean into how different their story is, and it just comes from listening. Like I think we've done a lot of interviews over the last couple of years with athletes and, people and things like that. And we've like our interviewing game has definitely stepped up a lot when it comes to just like listening and asking the right questions, because, you might have a list of questions that you have written down to ask them. But if you're constantly just like waiting to ask the next question, all you're doing is just doing question, answer. You're not actually listening. So you listen to each person's story as they're talking. And I'm finding, I'm actually less and less nowadays checking my list of questions and more just having a conversation with people. One of the ones that we usually start with, especially when it comes to athletes, is like, give me a history of you, give me a history of Kev. Like, give me, how'd you get into your sport? What were your parents like growing up? Just give me a brief history. And they'll usually just give you a 60-second rundown of like, oh, when I was a kid, I played soccer, and then, I broke my foot, and then I ended up doing this and this and this. And, you listen, and then there'll oftentimes be something that intrigues you in what they say. So you're like, oh, you just mentioned there that, you did gymnastics for a little while, and that was kind of the thing that changed it. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And then they'll go back to that, and then they'll dive a little bit deeper. It's all about really listening to people and really just wanting to hear what they have to say, rather than, looking forward to hearing how they're going to answer your question. That's how you tell different stories, is by just listening to each person's like unique story.
Beautiful, man. If you guys are enjoying this, please like, subscribe, and share this. You know what it is. Let's get on to the video breakdowns. Yeah, I know we talked about, I think you might have commented on the video when I covered it, but this always strikes me like, I'm like, this is a perfect fucking light. I'm
Yeah,
like,
dude,
how did this come about? Were you guys walking? You're like, oh, right there.
insane. Hey, yeah, that's it. Just on my phone.
God,
It was
damn.
exactly like that in person. It was absolutely insane. Like, this place was ridiculous. It was beautiful. It was like an hour and a half out of Salt Lake City. And yeah, the guy,
Salt Lake
like you can,
City. That's
yeah, just like ridiculous, bro. Like,
the light's so
absolutely.
low. What did you? How much time did you guys get? Was that like, I don't
Um,
know, an hour?
well, that shot there was taken at 7:35 p.m.
Yeah, because I feel like it was. Did you guys have a lot of time to shoot everything? I almost feel like it's so low that it would
Yeah.
have been dark like so fast.
Yeah, well, this is at 8 o'clock p.m. So you can see the sun is still like in the
Yeah.
sky. And then I think this This is at 8:45 p.m. So this is like, you know, the sun has like just gone down, but seeing it in person was like ridiculous. Like we were just standing there, just looking at it like, whoa, you have to go and walk down to that tiny little pocket. We probably got like 3 minutes before we lose
Yeah,
that little tiny pocket of light. So yeah, you can see the steps, like the footsteps down off
on
to
the
the
rest.
side because we were like,
Yeah,
don't walk through the middle of it, like walk around and then walk into it.
that's
But yeah, we
crazy.
were just standing there just like, that is insane. It's got to be one of the craziest shots of the year for sure.
What's giving it that triangle? Is it like the
It's just the sand dunes. So off to the right
uh,
of this shot here, the way that they just shaped basically just created this tiny little pocket of light. So it was almost like the sand dunes above her
uh
were kind of just like this. So
yeah,
it
there's
just
like two?
allowed this little triangle of light to come through. Yeah, just insane. Hey.
That's incredible. That shot right there, actually, these 2 shots, but that shot with the moon in the back,
Yeah.
when you see it, what was the idea? Is it like, "Okay, we gotta make this more creative, you stand, I'll lift up." Is that how the process is?
I think it was almost kind of like a bit of an accident because I was shooting, there was like the shot prior to that, which is kind of like the wider shot of him walking up the
Yeah.
stairs.
Is this
Yeah,
in the
that
same
one there.
spot?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think it was, but I think it was just a couple of minutes apart because you can see there's obviously clouds in that one and
Clouds.
they're not clouds in the next one. Yeah, he was like walking up and we did that a couple of times and then we were sort of just chilling because we thought, maybe we might get a little bit more of a burn on the sunset. And then I think I was just shooting this shot of him focused on him and my camera accidentally like racked focus to the moon in the background. And then I was like, oh bro, we got to do that. We got to do that again. And I'll kind of like count you in when to do it. And it's so funny because if you listen to the in-camera audio of this shot, you hear, like, you see the moon and then you see the camera come up and like, just like I had to get him to do it a couple of times so that he hit the right spot, like just covered the moon. The in-camera audio is me behind the camera, just like, bro, are you gonna see this shot?
Yeah.
So funny. Like, yeah, it is so
Oh
cool.
my god.
There's a couple of shots like that this year where listening back to the in-camera audio just made me laugh because it's just me behind the camera like, "Bro." Actually, another shot, yeah, that shot right there. So
Which it
that
comes
shot,
into focus, like
yep,
the wrist.
yep,
Yeah, yeah.
yep,
I was gonna ask
yeah.
about this 'cause I was like, "This one is one of my." Because I watched your YouTube video today. When I saw the shot, I was like, "This one is so clean."
That was another one of my favorites of the year. It's such a weird thing to have as, like, a favorite shot. Like,
To me, it's not because when I saw it, I don't know, there's something about it that I was like, it feels good. That whole idea of like
mm,
it does the feeling good part is what I like, and I'm like,
yeah.
that's the exact
Yeah,
same thing.
it was just like I got her to do every track athlete that I've worked with, they have their own kind of like routine of how they set up on the blocks, like, the way they put their hands down and they all have this kind of like step-by-step routine. So working with Brie, I've shot with her like so many times now, I kind of like understand her routine a little bit. And then she put her hands down and I was like, "Oh, let's do just your right wrist again, and it might actually be a really cool shot of the whoop band." So I had her kind of put it in and then get it to how she sets it up, and then I set focus, like super shallow. I was shooting at
Yeah,
1.8
well,
or something like that, so
yeah, it's
super
gotta be.
shallow. So basically, I just had her set it and then took her hand back and then put it back in again. And she just leaned forward to like exactly the right spot. And yeah, you can hear me from behind the lens, just like, yo, I think it might even be in the video of me just like losing it because of how excited I got. It's so funny.
Oh my god, yeah, because it's so shallow and, like, the whoop is perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Oh
Yeah.
my
And I think that was the first take too. I just like set the focus and she just came exactly into focus. And I was like, yep, there you go. That's the shot.
that's what makes the yelling so much greater. When it's the first
Yeah.
shot and you're like, "Yo, we don't need to shoot this again." Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. This umbrella shot,
Yep.
it's so, the one inside, like, this
Oh, yeah.
because it goes by so fast, it catches my eye instantly. Where do you think of this? Because it wouldn't look as good if this umbrella obviously wasn't transparent. I feel like
Mm,
it wouldn't have that
mm.
same feel to it. But are you guys walking in the rain and you're looking, you're like, shit, like hold this out and open it when
Yeah.
you shoot
I
it?
think
Is
that's,
that
like I was saying before, I think that's one of the biggest things is always like emulating what you feel when you're there and emulating what you see when you're there, you know? And I think this was another big one is like, we were just walking around in the rain and then I put my umbrella down because I had to get a shot and then I put my umbrella back up again in the forest and then popped it open and I was like, damn, that's actually cool. Like, what if I just kind of like, you know, mounted my camera up to the umbrella and then popped it open as it was kind of like almost like it was rigged to the umbrella, you know?
yeah, like a
And
magic
then
arm, as if you had a
yeah,
magic
yeah,
arm to it.
exactly.
That would
Like
have
it
been
was just
cool.
fully bolted to it and just kind of locked it in there with my hands. And then basically just did that a couple of times and then added in, I just did it, popped it open. I was like, okay, we'll add in a little bit of movement. And then I was like,
Movement,
okay, what
yeah.
if I start with it down like this and then bring it up and around and open at the same time? So you can see that as the umbrella opens, there's also kind of like the twisting motion
Yeah.
of like all of the trees and everything going past. But
And the things
yeah,
that
it's,
make it look really good too, right? Like, because it's like, the background actually has a bit of a warp to it a little
mm,
bit.
yeah.
Just that quick shot of the clouds.
Oh yeah, the time lapse.
Yeah, the time lapse. Is this the natural colors, or are you, like,
Yeah.
doing anything about that's a natural
Mm.
colors?
Yeah, dude,
How
that was in
long
New
was
Zealand. That was that was crazy to see. We were there just like set up. We wanted to get a bunch of shots of the chimney. We were looking to get like a bunch of FPV shots and things like that. And I was driving the car at the time and I had Cody who I was with was like flying FPV around the car and I was like, "Oh, we should just let me just quickly set up my other camera and just quickly get a time lapse of the clouds because we might be in for something cool." So I was just kind of like driving around as I was seeing the sunset just like burning and burning and burning. I was like, holy shit, this is so sick. And then, yeah, the camera was back there just like capturing all of it. But yeah, the quality of light
Ah,
over there during sunrise and sunset is psycho.
that is insane, and just, like,
Mm,
it almost feels like, it's upside down almost, like a whole other
mm,
world to me. I think because
yeah,
the way the sun is hitting and it's, like, the shadows where the shadows are, it
yeah,
almost looks like a whole other universe. That's why I was like, and
yeah,
because it happened so fast, I was like, "Dang, this one really stands out."
yeah.
Actually, before we get into it, what is your favorite shot of your whole year this year?
Oh, that's hard.
Okay, we'll do 3.
Um,
We'll do 3 shots.
I'm gonna have to play that video back or just scrub through that video, see if I can find it. Yeah, it's hard to pick one, especially when you're so like, you know,
Yeah,
emotionally attached to like the entire
everything.
year.
Because you also probably have, like, this attachment outside of the camera to it, like, what's happening that day. Like, how hard was it
Yeah,
to get the shot? Do you know what I mean? How hard was it to get
yeah.
the shot? Who was I with? Was I with, my partner? Was I with, my friends?
That one was a beautiful one. I really liked that one. I really liked the stuff that we shot out in the sand dunes, like especially some of this stuff.
Um, yeah, this one's good.
Really
The
liked
the
that one.
the touch of the red light was nice too, you know?
Mm. That one, obviously, like that little tiny pocket of light that we were talking about before
Yeah.
was crazy. That just like
Oh,
a
yeah, the little it looked like a
yep,
guitar pick? The
yep.
guitar pick light? Yeah, this one is insane.
Another one that was probably definitely a very strong contender that isn't I actually if I think it's in this video, but only for like a second or two, but it's actually in the other video. We were just traveling around NZ for a week and like obviously, like fireworks aren't really legal in Australia or New Zealand except for I don't know if it's one day or one weekend of the year in NZ called Guy Fawkes Day, which is named after a guy named Guy Fawkes who tried to burn down Parliament using gunpowder in like the 1800s or the 1900s or something like that. Basically, like plotted to burn down Parliament, and he was like, fucking like drawn and quartered for it or something like that.
Yeah, hell
But
yeah.
now they have a national holiday called Guy Fawkes Day, where it's legal to buy fireworks and set off fireworks, and it's only for like a couple of days. And I didn't even know about it. apparently it was a thing like way back when my dad was a kid. And I didn't even know about it. And we were just driving through this town in NZ, and there was some dude by the side of the road with a van selling fireworks. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, that
Yeah.
is sick.
You're
So
like,
we
is this
just
legal? Like, what am I
literally,
doing?
but
Yeah.
he was like right there in the middle of town with a big fireworks on. I was like, well, it must be. So we pulled over and started chatting to him. He's like, oh, bro, don't you guys know about Guy Fawkes Day? Like, oh, it's fully legal. And we looked into it, and it was like,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
you have
legit.
to.
So we just bought some fireworks, and we're like, oh man, we got to set these off. Like, this will be sick. Yeah, it set off 5 of them. And I was like, damn, that's really cool. And I was like, okay, let me just quickly like go back. I'll like reframe the shot slightly, and then we'll set off the other one. It was so funny because I was standing there holding it. He was like, don't hold them. But like, we like when we were kids, like we used to shoot them at each other. So like
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
hold them, it's fine. Set them off, and I'm standing there holding it, like had my arm up like that. I was like, yep, 1, bang, 2, bang. Yep, counted 5. And then I like the 5th one, and I just kind of like, relaxed my arm, just like dropped it down. And then it shot another one out. It was like shot out 6. And because I had like a pretty loose grip on it, it shot the firework out that way. And then it shot the actual like canister out the opposite direction. And the firework went underwater and exploded underwater and basically lit up this whole area out in front of us underwater
Did you
and
get it? Did you
scared the
get the shot?
shit out of me. Scared the shit out of me because I was like, oh my God, like, bro, imagine if I was like looking at it or something like that. Like,
Pointing at your face.
and can you imagine? Like, I would have died.
Yeah,
Um,
'cause that's
but
crazy.
that shot would probably have to be maybe my favorite shot of the year, just because like the laugh that we had after it was so funny. It was like, oh my God,
Kinda shocked, you're like, what happened?
scared the
Why the
shit out of
Yeah.
me. And then we just looked at each other and just wet ourselves laughing. It was so funny.
The stories behind some of these shots, right? I think it just makes it that much better. So this shot right here coming up, it kinda like tracks. It almost goes from the front,
Yeah, the light, that one.
like that one.
Yeah.
Are
I'm
you
glad someone else
eh
noticed that as
like,
well.
dude, I always, like, have to go back and watch because I love the details and stuff, and I try to put myself in the shoes and how, like, how I would feel. I feel like if I'm on the bus and I'm not even recording, and then I'm just seeing the light kind of pass me by, like, "What the
Mm,
hell?" And I would kinda turn and see it. Is that what
yeah.
happened? Is that, like,
Yeah. Yeah, so what happened is there was, like, we were going past, like, a bunch of trees, and then basically all of the trees, the gap in the trees
is where
appears
you're catching the
to
light?
let way for the sun to come through from behind the trees. And you can see it's, like, just literally as we're going forward, you can see the trees, like, disappearing off to the
Yeah.
right side there, letting that sun come through. And it was just this wave of light that just comes like whoosh from like front to back of the cabin.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's, it's the same as like when you're on a plane and you're like tilting in the plane and you see the light from all of the cabin windows kind of like moving up on the inside of the fuselage is like, that's what it felt like. Crazy. Hey,
Yeah.
just another one of those little tiny moments. It's like not a lot of people would notice that, but I'm glad you did.
Light just kind of and like you said, felt like a wave that kinda hits you. And it's kinda cool that the people are kinda just still and sitting down. There's something about it that's the only type of
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah.
When you're walking past, are you like, "This looks" as someone who looks at wardrobe coloring for work, like, for all your stuff, are you walking past, you're like, "This person looks interesting. I need
I
to
just
catch their
looked at her
shot."
hair. I just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I was just kind of just standing there. I think we were obviously on the way to somewhere because we were at a train station. We were just standing there. I wasn't really thinking about shooting anything. I was just standing there looking at this girl. I was like, whoa, look at her hair. And then I watched a train go past and it was like a green train. And I was like, look at her hair against that green train. So I just like saw another train coming and just quickly whipped up my camera and then it just like sped through the shot. It kind of like, blew her hair a little bit and it was
Perfect.
like
Perfect amount of wind.
just, oh, so crazy. Yeah, it was just another one of those like had like right place, right time shots.
Even the choice in the Whoop video, which I wanted to ask about, like, the choice in the band color, the choice in the shoes, the wardrobe, is that all you
Mm.
guys like, you specifically chose those?
A lot of that I actually leave up to Bree because,
Right?
you know, she is so good when it comes to knowing what looks good in content. You know, like she thinks that way when it comes to wardrobe and outfits and, you know, even her bands. I just asked her bring a couple of options for like shoes and for Whoop bands because I was like, if,
Mm.
you know, for the shoot, we don't necessarily just want like a plain black band like this. We kind of want something that's going to stand out a little bit. I got her to bring the yellow band as well, and as soon as she put it on, I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's it for sure."
Yeah, the yellow band, even like the block, oh, like, yeah, stands out. Like, even like the shoes,
Mm,
I had like this touch of orange,
yeah.
even the blocks, like,
Yeah,
you
the
know what I
blocks
mean?
were awesome because I think they must be
Even the
new
block,
because every time I've shot with her, she's just had, like, plain silver blocks, and then she brought these ones, and they were, like, red and blue, and I was like, "Whoa,
it looks so
that's
good.
sick."
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask that because, like, a lot of people who wanna get to your level and, especially with people like Brie, who, like you said, she is probably perfect partnering with someone who loves doing content to know that.
Mm,
Because it goes a long way when you start to see this stuff. I feel like it would
mm,
feel a little bit different if it was a dark green band or, like, shoes didn't pop as much. It, like, gives it a lot more life, I feel.
yeah.
Um, so I'm just trying to, like, encourage people to think about wardrobe or set design, kinda like
Mm.
clothing fit, kinda things like that, you know?
And if you're not wired like that, find someone who is. You know, you would think that working for a sportswear brand for as long as I have, I would kind of be wired like that. But I'm like, I'm more just trust what other people think. You know, if they're like, I think this would go well with this, I'm like, yep, sounds good.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'll trust you to make that call rather than be the one to make the call myself because it's, you know, not necessarily my strong point. And I think that's like that's another big lesson for a lot of this stuff is surround yourself with people who have strengths in areas that you're weak at, you know? Like you don't have to be good at everything. You can
No.
rely on other people to be good at the things that you're not good at. And that's like the best way to learn is surrounding yourself with people who are better than you.
Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 1 of Beyond the Cut. If you guys wanna watch more episodes, you guys can watch them right here.